How's it going, everyone? And welcome to a Football for Fun video. This is going to be a review. Yeah, review, I guess, is the word of the Netflix series that came out, Quarterback. So, in case you haven't heard of it, Netflix is coming out with a series. Actually, I didn't realize it. It is produced by Omaha Productions, in which, a good quarterback by the name of Peyton Manning is behind. So you kind of, I think that's actually a good thing, rather than just having some like random producer. You have a producer. I don't know if Manning's technically the producer, but the guy behind it really knows about football, Hall of Fame quarterback himself. So that's a good thing in my opinion. Yeah, honestly, if I seem like less energetic, it is like 11 p.m. I think. I just watched the first episode. Yeah, it's 11:20. So I'm just going to. I wanted to watch. So first of all, what I didn't realize is that I thought this was going to be like one of those series where like they've like put out an episode every week. It turns out it started airing today, and like all 8 episodes are there, which I thought was interesting. I'm not some avid TV watcher, so you can tell me in the comments like if that's common among like TV series or not. But anyway, I digress. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, so I just watched the first episode. I wanted to knock out like 2 episodes, but honestly, I'm a working adult. I got work tomorrow, so I'm not going to. Actually, I might, like, after I get done recording this, but I do want to make sure to go ahead and get this review out of the way and talk about my perspective of the first episode. So yeah, honestly, what I will say, first off, I think, first of all, a lot of, mainly Hard Knocks, I think it's a bad rap. It's just kind of gotten, like, boring and stale, like, the past few years, and I think maybe there are low expectations for this, lowish, I just say that out of speculation, not even, like, no necessarily. Although, again, I think the fact that, like, the Mannings are, like, producing it is huge, and I really liked it. I'll say that up front. Now, is it the best TV series ever produced? Probably not, but I really liked it. Basically, what Quarterback is they put you, in the in the shoes of the quarterback's, personal life, I guess, during the football season. It's mainly the games. Like, they talk about the games, or I guess they cover the games and, like, the emotions that they go through, the missed plays, the celebrations and things like that. But they also sort of go into the sort of family life that they had. By the way, I did not know that Marcus Mariota was married. I had no idea about that until the series came out. He's married, and I think he was expecting a child. I think he was expecting his second. And I think they give birth sometime during the series. So, good for him. Congratulations to the Mariota family. But I just thought that was interesting. I think it's interesting that all 3 quarterbacks in this series are married. And, I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. If you'd maybe rather have, like, one of the quarterbacks be, like, single or not necessarily married. Like, I don't know. I guess maybe in, like, today's NFL, it doesn't really make a huge difference if it's, like, girlfriend or wife. I mean, I'm not talking about, like, values necessarily, but I'm just saying, like, anyway, I guess that's kind of off the point. Well, not really. Well, my point was they sort of go into, their personal lives as well. And, I think they do hype it up a little bit that you're going to get, like, this all-exclusive access. I think if you've watched, like, Hard Knocks or other, like, stuff in the past, it's not really anything new, but it is pretty good perspective. And so, yeah, where to start? I didn't really take any notes during the TV series or during the episode, so I'm just trying to, like, recall off the top of my head. So basically, it covered the first few weeks of the NFL season. It was weird. I think they covered the first 5 weeks for the Chiefs, first 3 weeks for the Vikings, and only week 1 for the Falcons. So there's kind of a little bit of, like, inconsistency as far as that goes, although I definitely don't blame Omaha Productions for giving Mahomes potentially more airtime than the others. I mean, he deserves it. Yeah, so, okay, I'd say, yeah, actually the series did start. All of them, like, started with, like, flashbacks. So on Mahomes' perspective, it was the Super Bowl that they won. On Cousins' perspective, they went all the way back to his Redskins days, to where, that famous "you like that," chant that he, like, I think it was like I think he was chanting that to the owner or something like that. It was something legendary. And then, like, in Mariota's case, they went back to, the playoff game where he, maybe they went before that, but that playoff game against the Chiefs to where he, like, threw the pass and then it got tipped and he caught it. It's kind of, by the way, funny to think about. Like, Marcus Mariota has won a playoff game with the Kansas City Chiefs, against the Kansas City Chiefs, with Patrick Mahomes in it. It was just that Patrick Mahomes was the backup, so I would say that's one thing. Like, you start to remember, like, random anecdotes like that. Like, I don't think anyone thinks about Marcus Mariota has won a playoff game, so there you go. Also, they did mention how Kirk Cousins has only one playoff win, but in his perspective, it's like you should expect more. Like, he's a really good quarterback, he's being paid a lot of money, and yet he only has one playoff win to show for it. And obviously, Mahomes has more than one playoff win. So, yeah, they sort of went into flashbacks. I guess what I'll do is I'll start from Mariota's perspective, go Mariota, Cousins, then Mahomes. It'll be a little bit weird because that's not really the order that they went in. But so basically, like, Mariota, yeah, I found out he was married. I didn't even realize that. So good for him. My perspective, I think, honestly, like, no one's really surprised. He's one of the more boring quarterbacks, like, out there. Like, Mahomes has a very charismatic personality. Cousins, is quirky, but I think quirky in, like, a pretty good way. And, like, he's very interesting. And, like, I'd say even, like, Joe Burrow's interesting. Josh Allen's interesting his own way. But, like, Mariota, he's a bit more boring. He doesn't really, like, hype up the troops, I guess, as much as, like, some other quarterbacks would. And that might have been one reason for his downfall in Tennessee. Although I will say, there was, like, a wholesome moment where, like, he and his wife were, like, looking at the ultrasound for their baby. And, yeah, it was pretty cool. He was, like, happy. So that was good to see. Yeah, so, like, one thing is, like, yeah, from watching the series, you just remember, like, random games and anecdotes that, like, you otherwise... Because this week 1 game, like, Saints versus Falcons, by the way, let me actually look up. Who was the Saints week 1 starter? Because I'm pretty sure... I'm not going to take the time. It's going to take a minute. But I'm pretty sure Jameis Winston was their week 1 starter. So you got Mariota versus Jameis, the 1 and 2 overall picks from 2015. And yet, in 2023, I guess that was 2022, but that was not a storyline. Like, you never heard that. So that's kind of funny to think about. But yeah, so this week 1 game, Saints and Falcons, it was, like, very close. And ultimately what it came down to is the Falcons were up 2, I believe. And I think it was, like, 3rd and 1, and all they needed was, like, maybe even, like, 3rd and half or something. And, like, I think they didn't try to sneak. I think he was going to hand it off, but he fumbled. He did recover his own fumble, but he got short of the goal line. And the series didn't, like, specify, like, if they, like, tried to go for it or just punted. But either way, apparently, like, Saints got back the ball and got the game-winning field goal, and they were kind of harping on, like, oh, Mariota messed up. He fumbled on 3rd and 1, and they lost the game, which, I mean, it's true, but it's kind of interesting that, like, that's the only game, I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, yeah, that's the only game they showed, as far as Mariota's perspective goes. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, there's the moment with his family, obviously. I think he was talking to Arthur Smith about how he was going to have, like, daughters and, like, how difficult that was going to be, so I thought that was kind of funny. But, yeah, speaking of Arthur Smith, they did go a little bit into, like, I guess he did talk about a little bit about, like, he got booted out of Tennessee, he got benched, and then, well, maybe not boot. Was he a free agent? Was he trade? I don't remember, but he served as Derek Carr's backup for a while, and then he was talking about, like, free agency and, like, how there were, like, teams interested in him. He didn't go into specifics, but ultimately Falcons made a lot of sense because Arthur Smith was his offensive coordinator as a rookie, and I believe for all those 5 years he was in Tennessee. So that was pretty interesting. Yeah, as far as Cousins goes, so Cousins, yeah, so as I mentioned, it kind of went back to, like, his Redskins days. They kind of, like, excuse me, what do you want to call it? I guess, like, like, reminiscent back to that, and, like, obviously now he's the starting franchise quarterback in Minnesota. And they also brought up, like, Kevin O'Connell, how, like, he kind of came in with his own system, and Cousins even compared learning the new system to being a rookie, which I think that's another thing that like the average football fan probably understands but doesn't truly realize. Like, I'm trying to think. Yeah, Russell Wilson is going to have to learn a new system, for instance. He has a new head coach coming in, Sean Payton, and it'll be like his third offense, assuming that Pete Carroll, Nate Hackett, and Sean Payton didn't run. There wasn't any overlap. It'll be Russell Wilson's third offense in 3 years, so we'll have to see how that goes. I think that was even like a storyline with like Derek Carr, more so how he had like 7 coaches, or maybe it's 8 now. No, it might be 7 because Dennis Allen kind of repeat. But anyway, so they talked about that. So week 1, yeah, the Vikings played the Packers and won comfortably. I don't remember the score. I think it was like 23-10 or something like that. So they didn't like crush them, but it was very comfortable. There's like a play where Justin Jefferson was just wide open, so he just threw it, and they got the touchdown. And yeah, it just seemed like a pretty big like confidence booster until week 2. They played the Eagles, and I think they got crushed 41-7. I don't know for sure, but they got destroyed, and I think it really set into perspective like where the Vikings were as far as, you know, they had this exciting new offense. Kirk Cousins played very well week 1, and then they go to week 2, and then they're just kind of exposed. And what I also thought was interesting was Kirk Cousins had a session with his psychologist, and they talked about, which, like, that's also something, like, I imagine in today's NFL, like, you have all kinds of, like, I mean, you have, like, you know, people, professionals for, like, everything, and, like, you just don't really grasp, but, like, these quarterbacks, they kind of need, like, I don't think it's counseling necessarily, it's more just, like, it was like a psychologist, and he was just talking about like just like general stuff, like how he was like starting to like doubt himself and it wasn't going to be easy and things like that. So excuse me, yeah, sorry about that. I'm not going to edit it out, and just it's like 11:30. Just if you're watching this, you're awesome, by the way. Yeah, so they kind of went into that, and then yeah, in week 3 they played the Lions. They were both 1-1, and there was one play at some point in the game. I lose track of when, but he had KJ Osborne wide open, but just overthrew it. And then on the game-winning drive, I believe KJ Osborne caught like 3 passes. They were all clutch, including the game-winning touchdown. And that was pretty cool, you know, how like that kind of turned around. And it also kind of goes into something with Mahomes, which I guess we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, it was that. They talked a lot about Kirk Cousins, like, you know, family life. They did interview his wife, or I guess his wife talked a lot, you know, showed his kids. They discussed, like, apparently, like, yeah, week 1, he had that, is it plaid? Like, some shirt that a lot of people were teasing him about because it's, like, you know, his dad's shirt or something like that. And, like, he's talking about how his wife just picks out his outfit, and his wife was talking about how, like, you know, people make fun of it, but, you know, she just thinks it's funny. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, and then on Mahomes' perspective, so, yeah, Mahomes, so they did feature, like, his wife, who a lot of people hate, and I think rightfully so, but it was kind of interesting. Like, she kind of just went into, like, how they met. They met in, like, 7th and 8th grade, I think. Like, she was in 8th grade, he was in 7th, and, like, they didn't really start dating until, like, I guess that would be, like, 3 or 4 years later. Like, I think Mahomes said he was friend zoned, so, like, that was interesting. And then I think Mahomes had, like, a birthday party. It was his 27th, by the way. So if you really think about it, he's going to be 28 this football season, I think. And that means he's only 2 years away from 30. Now, in today's NFL, 30 is not anything old. I'm sure Mahomes is not going to be at the peak of his prime till like 35 or something like that. But Patrick Mahomes is going to be 30 in like 2 years. It's crazy to think about. So anyway, yeah, they showed that. Yeah, week 1, they destroyed the Cardinals. It was something like 44-17. That's not the exact score, but it was something like that. Week 2, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. They beat someone in week 2. I'm drawing a blank. They must have not showed that game very much. Was it the Raiders? No, the Raiders was later. They crushed the Cardinals week 1. I'm going to look it up. I am drawing a blank because I remember, they showed the Colts game, which they randomly lost, and they showed the Raiders. No, they showed the Bucks game, then they showed the Raiders. But I'm drawing a blank on who they beat in week 2. 2023, Kansas. Oh, sorry, no, 2022. My bad. 2023, Kansas City remains to be seen. Yeah, sorry, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is just a little bit awkward. I'm not going to edit this or anything. I want to put this out soon. Oh, they beat the Chargers. Yeah, I think they barely went into that as far as I remember. It was like, another win. This time was a little bit closer, but yeah. So then, they show, which that's another thing you randomly forget, that, the Chiefs lost this random Week 3 game to the Colts. And they went into that basically Mahomes, I think I remember actually watching it. I remember watching it with a little bit of intrigue because it was I think the Texans, have we won a game yet? I don't think so, but I remember it was okay, well, if we win and the Colts lose, then maybe we could start to close the gap in the AFC South and but why would I remember rooting for the Chiefs? No, that makes sense. No, I remember rooting for the Colts for some reason. Well, I don't know. It's past my bedtime in theory, but I remember watching that. I think it was one of those situations where Mahomes had the ball with 24 seconds left and only needed a field goal, which was basically the same situation he was in the year before in the divisional round against the Buffalo Bills. And, they clutched up. Well, in this one, they didn't. He threw a pass that was tipped and picked, and so they lost that game. And then they went into the Bucks game, and that was interesting because they did beat the Bucks comfortably. I think the score was, I have it here. It was 41-31, and I think it was even worse than that from what I remember. I think the Bucks made a little comeback, but they couldn't quite seal it, obviously. But they were talking, or they were showing. When I say they, I'm talking about the production, just to be clear. But they were showing Mahomes how he overthrew or missed Jerick McKinnon on a very easy touchdown, and he was devastated about that. Those easy plays, if you miss them, it can really make or break a game. And then they showed the play, which again, this is a play that I forget happened, to where he's scrambling. I think he but I think he escaped Vita Vea. Then I want to say Levante David's in his face. He spins and he acts like he's going to go to the end zone, but then he kind of dunks the football to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That was just some Mahomes magic. Honestly, at this point, Mahomes is just so freaking good. You just get numb to it and you just forget that stuff. But yeah, it was that was just a crazy play. And then Mahomes was yeah, I made up for that, and then yeah, that was that. And then they talked about the Raiders, which this is also something you don't think about. Apparently, the Chiefs and Raiders rivalry is very heated. At least that's what Omaha Productions portrayed it yeah, basically I think Mahomes himself even said that's the one rivalry that kind of feels like a college rivalry. And they were talking about how Mahomes and Max Crosby had this rivalry. Crosby would try to get at him, and at some point Mahomes threw a ball, then 5 seconds later Crosby just kind of hit him, and then Mahomes was bro, chill out. And then the next play or something like that, Mahomes threw a touchdown, then got in Crosby's face and started saying stuff. He got so crazy that Andy Reid had to pull him back. It's just yeah, so crazy. And the Chiefs won that game. I think they won by 1 point. And I was trying, because I think there was a Chiefs-Raiders game where the ref screwed up so bad that he was crying when he called some penalty or something like that, or offset or something like that. I couldn't remember if it was that game or a future one. But either way, it's so crazy because the Raiders were just so bad last year. But that rivalry is yeah, didn't they have some interesting rivalry stuff, but anyway, that was that. So yeah, that's quarterback. Overall, I think it's a very good show. I give it so far a solid Sheesh, I might give it a 9 out of 10. I mean, it's not like the perfect show, but I really like it. I signed up for Netflix for the first time in my life to watch it. I signed up for the cheapest plan, which is like $8 a month or something like that, and so far it seems all well worth it. Honestly, it is like it is getting to my bedtime, but I think I'm going to put on the second episode, and let me know if you want me to continue doing these reviews or if you just like don't really care. I know maybe some people have already watched it, maybe some people just don't really care that much, or they're like deciding. Just let me know if that's like any help for you. I would appreciate it. It kind of gives me content to do anyway. And yeah, with that said, I think I'm going to go to sleep and or maybe put on the second episode and maybe fall asleep to that. Who knows? But yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched this, then you're awesome. And I will see you for the next one. Bye.